we're not being honest, us creators and professional Airbnb hosts specifically. And I want to come clean about some stuff because the truth is, if you asked any one of us, myself or any of these other big creators, who the biggest threat to their business is, it's you guys. It's you hosts with like 1 or 2 properties. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning into the live stream. The reason why is because you guys have better advantage than us. You guys have the ability to adapt to stuff. You have the ability to give a better product, a better experience. And us bigger hosts, we know it. We know that we are incapable of actually competing with the masses of Airbnb hosts. Remember, Airbnb is a software platform that tries to give each individual guest the best possible guest experience. And do you think myself can like give a better experience at 150 doors than you can give at 1? I might have been better than you when I had 5 doors, maybe, right? But let's be real. Like, I'm not the best host at 150 doors. I wasn't the best host at 60, right? There's things that I do better than all of you guys, maybe. That's why I teach you. I actually don't want to sound like an asshole. I can't help but to not sound like a jerk in this video. I'm sorry, guys. My name's Sean, by the way. I have ADHD. Please forgive me. This is the biggest YouTube channel to learn Airbnb, and I'm coming off kind of weird in this video, so please forgive. What I'm trying to say is those of us with a lot of properties, we've got a couple skills, like tricks up our sleeve. Airbnb's low barrier to entry, right? Anybody can kind of do this. You guys remember my story. I started doing Airbnb because I had empty apartments from my other business that were just like rotting and losing money on rents, right? And a lot of you started Airbnb because you had a spare house, right? Spare room maybe, and you got into it. Thanks. Okay, how's this? Is this video better? The last one was freezing out bad. If this one's good, please let me know in the comments. I have no clue what was going on with that last live stream. It was weird. So my point about scale and the advantages that I have and the limitations of them and the reason why big hosts like us want to lie to you is because I was able to grow a business based on building teams. Okay, I can get my housekeepers for cheaper. Right? I found a way to get my housekeepings done for like 22 bucks an hour. And that's why you guys hear me talk about hiring your housekeepers by the hour. I learned at somewhere near 100 properties that if I paid my housekeepers by the hour, they'll do 6 apartments for like 75 bucks in a day. Where my other housekeepers were charging me 55 bucks per clean, right? So that was like 300 and something bucks a lot of times, right? 330 bucks instead of 75. Huge savings. But on that side of scale and all the savings and all the efficiencies and being good at price, I grew to a position where I could not grow, learn, innovate, change, do better. And I started to have to find other people who were better than me at different things. Not always to success. You guys remember I hired Haley about 5 or 6 years ago. She was really good at systems and stuff, but she got so into systems that she started making guests feel like criminals every time that they had a complaint or every time they did something wrong. And we had to hire somebody as a guest experience manager to like save the day from that, right? So a lot of us, we grow to a point of incompetence. And that's, I need you to understand this. A lot of us suck at something. And so where we might get housekeepings done for cheap, we get what we pay for. And then we have to overmanage these housekeepers to upload photos and not cut corners and everything else. And at one point, we don't do a good job of managing them, right? Every big host in the world, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be guilty of this too. The way that we try to inspect our housekeepers' work is we have them upload photos somewhere, right? Upload photos. You guys even use a channel manager that probably has a photo thing for your housekeeper task management. You think you're doing a great job, but a lot of you have to be honest with me. You're not checking the photos, are you? You're not looking at them. You're not inspecting the photos for little signs, the tiniest signs that your cleaners are doing something wrong. These big boys, we're not doing it half the time either. So we have to hire somebody just to look at photos because we're too busy with everything else that we just want to say, well, if a housekeeper uploaded photos, that must be proof enough that they cleaned it. They wouldn't upload photos that had any problems, would they? But that's part of our review, is we're looking for photos that they didn't upload. We're looking for proof that they're hiding things in their photos, right? And a lot of you guys may not inspect appropriately. And this is one of the major things that we start to fall apart on. Another thing we fall apart on is the inability to innovate when the world changes, right? So let's say a design style just kind of falls out of favor or a color scheme falls out of favor. Do you think that we're gonna like shut down 20 properties for a week and a half and buy new couches and repaint walls? No, a lot of us, the big guys with hundreds of properties, we just go to war on price. We're like, oh, we can eat it. We just like drop the price a little bit, try to get booked. You know, everything sells at a price is kind of our thing. But if we did it the right way, we wouldn't have to go to war on price nearly as much to sell our shit stuff. Pardon my French, right? So we've got product that's outdated, that's not good for the market, that's not based on like foundational best practices, because we scaled what we thought worked before we knew any better, right? A lot of my properties look the same. And I did it because I liked certain couches, but I didn't know that these couches may not have been the best couches, stuff like that. So we end up with this bloated inventory of mediocre stuff. And a lot of coaches would want you to pick up the same mediocre trash that they have, because then if you relied on them to get into the game and they gave you stuff that could be profitable if you followed their systems, then you rely on them for all of their systems, right? So for example, my cheaper properties can do great if I pay my housekeepers by the hour and if I go to war on price. And I'm really good at that. That's why I'm like the best at pricing strategy, and I'll argue that, is because I've had to go to war with some mediocre listings. But I've actually said to my students lately, within the last year, stop picking up apartments. And you know why I said that? Because of Hilton. Hilton is winning, my friends. Hilton has gone to war against Airbnb and is clawing back inventory and wants everybody to go back to hotels. And the ones that are affected the most are hosts with apartments, because they're most like hotel rooms, are they not, right? So what's the best deviation? The best thing is to pick up houses. If Hilton is pulling people away from hotel apartment style inventory, then if you want to be an Airbnb host in the world of Hilton, like trolling on Airbnb, then you should have a 4-bedroom house, because Hilton just can't compete with that inventory. It's not similar enough. So the last year and a half, I've told my students, even though I do arbitrage for apartments a lot, you should do houses right now. It's just generally safer. But with that said, most like people who run systems like this would want you to copycat them completely. That's a pretty standard practice, right? Even like Staley, right? Staley doesn't want you to copycat them. They want you to completely rely on them. So Staley sells a program for $10K. So you can get on a list for them to find you properties for another $5K. And then they double charge you for the furniture. $15,000 for a studio. $15,000 for a studio is what they charge in furniture. Then you co-host with them. They sign the lease under Staley. It's not your property. It's Staley's property, where you just paid $15,000 for the furniture, $5,000 for the locating, $10,000 for the program, and then you pay them a percentage to run it. That's absolutely trash. So some of us are even so bad, we just want to show you what's possible, so you pay us money 5 times till Sunday. Hey guys, can you sound off in the chat? I just want to make sure that there was no skipping or freezing because my screen went black for a second. So here's some other things we don't want you to know, right? If there was a world where you didn't get all of your dates booked because you guys had a bunch of ego and you were like pissy about your prices, that's good fun now. That's so, hopefully you could still hear me. Airlines cost a certain amount of money to fly. They've got to pay for gas, they've got to pay for the pilot, they've got to pay for the stewardesses and stuff like that, flight attendants. And it's a fixed cost. So the first 60 tickets that they sell at a certain price go to their actual cost, right? Above and beyond that, ticket number 61 is pure profit. And this is the foundation of contribution margin. You need to sell a certain amount of business just to get your money back. And then after that, it's just like straight clear. And so for you guys, your first 10 or 14 days might be contribution margin flatline, right? So your first 10 days get like $700 a night, whatever, you break even. Well, after that, the next 15 days are all profit for you. That's really where you make all of your money. And a lot of hosts have this ego about their listing price. They're like, I won't go below $300. My listing is worth more than that. Well, that's false. Your listing is worth whatever a guest will pay. So let's say that your house could sleep 11 people. You get $300 a night. Great. Like at minimum, you get $700 a night otherwise. But last minute, you got a couple days unbooked. And the only person that will book with you is a person who missed their flight at LAX, and they'll stay with you for 100 or 110 bucks. There is no group of 11 for you right now. I'm sorry. There's not one. Take the group of 2 for 110 and pocket the 110. Because at the end of the month, if you got another one for 300, for 200, 80, 80, 80, 80, 80, and 110 twice, that's an extra 1,120 bucks at the end of the month for 9 days, okay? Where you were 20 days booked, now you're 29 days booked, you have an extra $1,100 of profit because the bottom was all of your cost. The frothy stuff at the top, the $110 bookings, was all your profit. And a lot of you guys won't play that game. So we, with the big listings, with less good listings, like less attractive listings, we would like you not to drop your rates. We would like you not to fight on price because we can go down there and like fight in the muck. I actually met a host today at the gym. We were both in the dry sauna, and he has like 15 properties, and he actually came to one of my Airbnb events a few years ago at my penthouse, back when I lived at this building called the Katy. And we were talking about how much inventory there is in all these other buildings. Like he's in the Butler Brothers and Saunders in there and all these other companies are in there. So 100 keys at this one apartment complex. And I'm like, yeah, you really have to deviate at that point. With thousands of properties downtown Dallas, you've got to do something to cut through the noise. He's like, yeah, it's good to like do luxury and stuff. I'm like, bro, I really don't think you understand what I mean. Luxury is just a stratosphere, right? You've got efficiency, you've got like mid-market, you've got luxury, but that still doesn't make anybody book. Generic luxury doesn't speak, right? It's just like, oh, cool, slightly better couch. But luxury doesn't have the sticky emotional appeal like you think it does. You need to find a sub-market. I'm like, what about a luxury place that has way more plants than normal? Tons of real live plants. That's a personality type. What about a place that has completely dark, moody walls, like this place? Like all my walls are like dark green and stuff with this one. That's a vibe, right? Because it has a personality type. And you know what a vibe is? It's when the personality of a listing matches the personality of the traveler and they vibe. Not that they match, but they coordinate, right? When you get along with somebody else's personality, then you vibe, right? So you have to have personality to have a vibe. So you can either do something super kitsch or retro. You could do something super dark and moody. You could do white on white and have this like completely classy look. You can do way too many plants. You can do a theme, but you need to find a submarket. And this is one thing that I don't think a lot of people want you to know. When they have 100 junk properties, and I have 100 mediocre properties, and I don't want you to beat me. So I don't want you to have a property that just speaks to people. Because even if I drop my price, your listing speaks to people. I can't get booked because your listing is just so good that it doesn't matter what the price is. We call this being improved upon by an order of magnitude. And so in slow season, you can defend with design, where even if I go down on prices, if your listing has its own personality type and somebody scrolling on Airbnb has a vibe with your listing, they'll pay more. They absolutely will pay more. So there's a few things that you need to know that we probably wouldn't tell you. Is we wouldn't normally tell you about contribution margin, because now once you understand the complexities and the core of contribution margin, you'll go to war on price with a better listing. 2, we don't want you to know how to create a vibe between you and a customer, because that's really how you get through all the noise. And if my 100 mediocre properties that all have the same paint job aren't any fun, and you get the bookings, then I get stuck again, right? You might see some older listings or older videos where I was in Austin 4 years ago, Thanksgiving, where I tested 4 different color palettes to see what would book. And I had a listing that was like this, black and green. This is my favorite, by the way. And I thought I was gonna get all the bookings, but the pink and mauve one got all the bookings. So we started doing more of those in Austin, right? This was a very basic version of market fit for color theory. So that's another thing, but I want you to take it farther than that old video that I did just a few years ago. And the last thing, we don't want you to change your prices based on contribution margin. We don't want you to have a better listing. We don't want you to create a vibe with people. We don't want you to innovate your listings or keep up with us. We don't want you to do things that are not duplicatable. This is the core here. Let me see if I got it again. The core of what makes money on Airbnb is doing stuff that's not duplicatable, right? So somebody made the mistake one time of doing something wrong by spending too much money on their property. And you can see this happen, like Kissimmee, Florida. This is the history of Kissimmee. Somebody decided to spend $30,000 or $40,000 too much on their property to make a themed Airbnb because they just thought it would be so cool. But it was a dumb idea. It couldn't have made money. It's just way too much money invested into a property. But then that was the property getting booked. It set the standard, set the bar. They're making $1,000 more per night than everybody else. Until somebody did that, it was a dumb idea. It was unduplicatable and it was a dumb idea. And the stuff that really works on Airbnb, because the way Airbnb's system works, is you need to do something that really doesn't hash out on paper on the front end. And on the back end, you get heavily rewarded and you will be in a class all your own. And like nobody can fight you. The things that I do better than a lot of you guys that you guys could copy from us big hosts is hire your housekeepers by the hour and like really manage your pricing strategy more well. But that's really like the end of it. Because again, we paint all of our walls the same. We don't have the ability to adapt. We're not going to delist our property for 7 days and renovate it and change your design style. So keep up with design trends and just do stuff that other people aren't doing and just really punish us for our failure to innovate if you want to make a lot of money. And be more like wholesome with your guests. Actually call them. That's another thing that big hosts don't want to do. Nobody wants to pick up the phone and call their guests when they have 150 properties. We do not want to do outbound calls to guests who are upset because they can't figure out the lockbox. You know how disheartening it is to talk to like 8 angry guests a day who want to scream and yell at you? Nobody wants that. So at scale, it gets really hard to deal with and people start to shy away from it. And they really just try to find every excuse to not call a guest. This is the stuff that we start to lose on. And you guys can do better than that. There was something else. I'll have to talk about it in a different video because I really did lose the last thing. And I want to apologize for failing you because the last video that froze all the time and that YouTube killed, I think I nailed that one. I'm going to argue and tell you that I nailed that one. So like this video, because I think I did better on the last video that I had to delete. But guys, it was really fun hanging out with you. I like doing these live streams, and I'm committed to making them happen as every day as possible because I want you guys to know what's going through my brain, because being a host every day can be tough. There's things that I realized, like I just, you know, I had to drive my bus to drop off a bunch of stuff downtown, and, you know, there could have been something that I learned while dealing with guests and lockboxes downtown today, for example. But yeah, you guys have the advantage because Airbnb likes you guys. Airbnb doesn't necessarily like us bigger players. We don't do nearly as much for the guest as we should. And as long as you do stuff for the guest, you'll be at the top of their algorithm. And just everything that we can do, good copy us. So with that said, guys, I'm going to get back to the rest of my life here, play some piano, which is like right behind you. I play piano every single day if I can. I actually give like a little end of day bonus. Let's hear if you can hear this. What I try to do every day is I actually just try to improv every morning. I was a lot better at this back in college. But I'll do that like 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day, and I'll just riff. My favorite key is E flat, if you wanted to know. But with that said, guys, thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you on the other side.